Welcome to Education Policy. If you'll please silence your phones, I'm excited that all of you are here. And before we begin, I'm going to ask Vice Chair Alan Baker to bless our meeting. Thank you.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, just a wonderful, wonderful day. We just thank you just for this opportunity, privilege to be able to serve citizens of Alabama. We just pray that you be with members of the legislative body, that you provide us with wisdom, you provide us with discernment, that you be with all those that are that have come to Montgomery to advocate or oppose based on the positions they take. We ask that we be respectful of one another. Father, you just guide and direct us, and that all glory go to you. We ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much. I also want to take the moment to introduce, I have a page with me this week. Her name is Mackenzie Sims, Kenzie Sims, and she's an 8th grader at Austin Junior High. And sitting beside her is Brant Smith, who is paging for the Speaker of the House, and he's a 12th grader from Valley Head. So please help me welcome them. Kenzie wants in. I also want to introduce, and I failed to last week, and I apologize. But we have an intern with us this year, and it's Ethan Ivey. He is from the University of Montevallo. He's majoring in political science, and I am sure he will find our committee very entertaining for him these next few weeks. But we appreciate having him here, and he'll be helping Adam the whole time. So thank you. Let's welcome him as well. We are going to go a little bit out of order, and so if you will bear with me, but we are going to start with House Bill 169 and then the Senate bill following, and then 173 because those sponsors are here, and then we'll get to the public hearing at the end, just to let you know. So first up, we will call up House Bill 1.
You need to call the roll.
Thank you. First up, we will call the roll, please, Mr. Clerk. Thank you.
Representative Collins.
Here.
Representative Baker.
Here.
Representative Drummond. Representative Daniels. Representative DuBose. Representative Estes. Here. Representative Fincher. Here. Representative Gidley. Here. Representative Gray. Representative Holk Jones. Here. Representative Morris. Here. Representative Paramore. Here. Representative Pascal. Here. Representative Smith. Here. Representative Woods. Here. A quorum is present.
Thank you, and thank you for keeping me on track. I appreciate that. Now, first bill is House Bill 169.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. House Bill 169 is the companion bill to Senate Bill 48, which is also on the agenda that passed with Senator Reid's sponsorship in week 1. Both require that curricula that will be used in each classroom across the state and each school district of Alabama be posted on the school website at the beginning of each school year or within 30 days, calendar days, after a new or revised curriculum is adopted. The posting will be verified by the local superintendent of education and local board of education. There's also a uniform method of communication for parents and guardians who have questions about classroom instructional material and how it relates to the content standards adopted by the State Board of Education, or to physically examine any instructional material in the classroom. So the goal for this bill is to provide parents and guardians with an easily accessible way to see their children's curricula in hopes of having better engagement with their child's education. When students have a parent or guardian involved in their education, I believe that they have better outcomes and greater student success. This bill also fosters dialogue between parents and teachers. I think we could all agree that many of our greatest challenges, whether it be in education or anything else in life, is a lack of communication. So this bill provides a methodology that encourages parental involvement and communication with our child's teacher. With that being said, Madam Chair, I'd be glad to answer any questions. Now, we'll have a couple of amendments.
All right. First, Representative Smith.
Yes, Representative Wood. I'm all for our parents being involved, and I like that fact a lot. My concern comes with the fact who's going to be posting this. If we're going to put more work on our teachers and take more time away from them teaching, then I would oppose it, but I'd like to hear your answer to that.
Well, the idea is that they would post this curricula, which is adopted locally by the state school board and their local board, prior to school starting. And so if they had a change of course throughout the year, they have 30 days to upload that to the website. And what I've found that most places in the state are doing this already. And so the technology's there. It's very easy to upload. A lot of teachers are providing this information already to their parents. And so this would just make it uniform statewide. We talked with a lot of groups here that are vested in education, and they felt like this would be something that would be able to be accomplished without taking away from instructional time for the teacher, which is most important. I agree with you on that.
Thank you. Any other questions? Representative Fincher.
Representative, the information would be posted statewide. The state curriculum would, and if there is any variance, would that at the local level, would that be an addendum to that, or how would that be
Well,
handled?
the state does post their curricula already. However, if there was something adopted locally, the curricula, whether it be the state or the local curricula, if it varied, would be on the school's website, accessible by the parent or guardian.
Okay, so not the system website, but each school website would
If
have
the school
this.
has a website, if they do not, it would then be required to be on the system's website.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Morris.
On,
HB 169.
okay, but because I heard you say 169 and,
They're identical. We're going to discuss if
We'll do one Senate Bill
48.
48 right after this because they're going to be identical,
Okay,
like
sure.
you just said. Representative Gidley.
Representative Woods, is this basically giving parents a little more transparency and available to see exactly what their children are being taught in school? Is that kind of what this is, by posting the curricula on the website so they can see there's curricula there that they may have trouble with or may have concerns about, or even just to keep up with what their children are learning? Is that kind of maybe the heart behind it in somewhat, Representative Woods?
That is exactly the intent that I have, as well as to drive more communication between the parent, guardian, and their teachers.
So a parent then could see this and they could maybe create a conversation between them and their child. Say, hey, I saw you're going to be studying this. You know, I had this in school or whatever. You know, but just create a greater learning experience, I guess, is what you're trying to get to. Is that correct?
It is. Well, I believe that greater parental engagement with their child, and I can say firsthand, I mean, I have an 8th grade student, and my wife, I'll put most of this on her. She's responsible most evenings for helping do homework and study, and we're having to go back and learn things that we learned 25 years ago so that we can help her. So this is a way that we can find that information easily and be able to, you know, for our own help, relearn it so we can help our student. If there's other concerns, you know, about material, then there's a process by which that can be addressed as well.
Are there any other questions? I believe we have an amendment before us, everyone. Would anyone want to offer the amendment? Thank you. Representative Estes.
Thank you, Representative, for bringing this bill. I would like to bring an amendment to HB 169 doing the following. Replace line 40 on page 2 with the following: request of any parent or guardian by providing A. Replace lines 83 through 84 on page 3 with the following: pursuant to this section is an educational record of the student on whose behalf the complaint was filed and shall not be released or viewed except as provided in this section, and where the release or viewing is otherwise consistent with the Federal Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act of 1974, otherwise known as FERPA, and state law. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any questions about the amendment? We have a motion to adopt the amendment. Do I hear a second? By Representative Estes, do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Representative Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The bill is amended. All for that. Representative Baker.
I apologize for not being able to see you in advance on this, and if need be, then this can be something, that if needed, then I can wait till the floor. But a potential amendment then to be considered, I would offer this as well to the members of the committee as well. And so this would be on page 2, line 39, add section B. I would say, beginning in the 2024-25 school year, local boards shall report to the state's shall report to the State Superintendent of Education the curricula adopted by subject and grade level. The State Superintendent shall compile a list which shall be updated annually and displayed publicly on the State Department website. So, Representative Woods, I don't mean to throw you a curveball here at the last moment, but it is something that I was receptive to, and at least viewing this, seeing that. If we need to wait, I would be willing to do that, but if something we think we could move forward
Well,
on then.
it's new, obviously, so I would prefer that we discuss that if possible. If we can pass through today what we have, I'll be happy to work with you on that, and I'm sure we can figure something out.
Madam Chair, I can wait.
Okay. We will hold off on that one and potentially think about that on the floor. We'll talk with you and we'll talk with the Senate sponsor. So any other questions about the House Bill 169 as amended? Do I hear a motion? So moved. We have a motion to give 169 as amended favorable report by Representative Fincher. Do I hear a second? Second. Second by Representative Estes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The bill is given a favorable report.
Thank you.
We'll call up Senate Bill 48.
As already mentioned, Senate Bill 48 is identical and has identical amendments to be considered as well. And so,
Do I hear anybody willing to offer the Senate amendment, the amendment to this bill? Representative Pascal, thank you. Do I hear a second? Representative Baker. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The bill is given a favorable report. Good timing, Senator Reed.
Madam Chair, I don't mind standing aside for the pro tem if he'd like to say a few words if you're in agreement.
He may, yes.
Thank you, Representative Woods. Thank you, Madam Chair, Mr. Vice Chair, and learned scholars. Thank you so much for giving my bill a favorable report. Not that I needed to come down here. Obviously, my colleague from Jasper, Alabama, has done a great job navigating this through your committee. But I just want to come and say thank you. This issue has been an important issue to me as president of the Senate. There's just one or two bills in a session that I even carry because I'm really carrying everybody's bills as we navigate through the process, and you all understand that perfectly. But I've heard on a number of occasions from parents as well as from educators that having more information about what's going to happen with children's education is a positive. And the idea that we would require this kind of data, of which many schools already do this, but would require this kind of information to be available, and then create a pathway by which teachers and parents and school board members, whoever, can have more conversations about curriculum and what our children are being taught is a good thing. I've heard from superintendents related to this legislation that said, we like this because the more parents read about what we're doing, the more information they have about what we're teaching, the more engaged parents are. And they followed it up to say sometimes parents get very engaged. But that's okay too. They should. That's their right. It's their kid. And so I just want to say again, thank you. I think the legislation is good policy, and it is. I am very appreciative that you agree and that you've been able to move it forward in this committee. So I appreciate that, Madam Chair, and I appreciate Representative Woods for being willing to handle it in your chamber.
Well, we appreciate your willingness to continue to consider things that also improve it. And I know we mentioned one right before you walked in, but we have sent the bill just like yours. But we will be in touch about a potential one more amendment that would be helpful.
Always willing to visit with you.
I appreciate it. Thank you for being
Yes,
with us
ma'am.
today.
My privilege. Thank you so much. Thank you, Representative. Yes, sir.
Thank you, Representative Wood. Next, we're going to call up.
We still need to move a favorable report on SB 48.
We have an amendment on SB 48. Do I hear a motion to approve SB 48? So moved by Representative Gidley, second by Representative Estes. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Senate bill is also given a favorable report. Thank you,
Committee.
Representative
Thank you,
Woods.
Madam Chair.
I'm trying to get ahead of myself, going too fast today. House Bill 173, we'll call it now, which has a substitute which is before you, and we'll let the sponsor explain.
A little shorter than that. Chair, Chairwoman Collins and members, thank you so much for allowing me to come before you guys today. HB 173 prohibits the use of 3Qing system of educational instruction in our K through 12 schools. Simply put, the strategy involves prompting students to draw on context, sentence structure, and letters to identify words in the place of phonics. Research has shown that this approach and this method is counterproductive for our weaker students, and it reinforces reinforces habits of bad readers, or I should say poor. Let me say that. That's a much nicer word. And then it also doesn't really give them a systematic or explicit explicit teaching necessary for them to be able to make the connection between spoken and printed word. So in order to make sure that we are just doing the best for our students, we want to make sure that this is not being used at all in any of our schools. And as she said, I do have a sub. I don't know if we want to go ahead and address those things.
I would
How
love
you
for
like
you to
do
go
that?
ahead and address the, well, no, let's, no, I would love for you to go ahead and address the changes so that everybody sees that before we adopt. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. So in reviewing this bill, and we had a couple, the State Department of Education worked on this with us and a couple others, but basically they felt like there were some vulnerabilities in this and wanted to add some language. So starting at line 38 through 42, basically is, so your pre-service students are the first defense for ensuring that Alabama teachers have the knowledge needed to support students learning to read. So by clarifying our expectations or definition of educator prep programs, including alternative methods, it works to ensure that the teachers in this program have the knowledge to support students, acquisition of reading, and then it will take state approved. Anywhere else you see this in the bill, it's been struck because we put it in this definition. So that's the first one. Then lines 62 through 70 and lines 85 through 88. In a couple places, the words "those that employ the 3Qing system model of reading" has been removed because it's really just repetitious. So we are just moving that and making it a little bit more clear and removing the repetition. Throughout the document, we have removed the phrase "as the primary basis." This was done so that in the event that they still happen to have 3Qing around, they can't use it as a secondary source. So just making sure that it can't be used at all. Line 83 through 84, the phrases "oral language" and "writing, including encoding" were added, as these are often mentioned in Alabama when referring to others. They refer to these collectively as the Big 5+2. And then line 85, they changed the word "may" to "shall" just to clarify intent.
Are there any questions about the sub? Representative Morris.
Is this strictly for public schools? Or like, is it for
It's
public
for-
charters or any other schools that's?
Charter schools are public.
Yeah,
Well,
anything
or
that's a
any-
public school.
Or any other school that's gonna be funded through state funds?
For public schools.
Public schools.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have one.
Do I, Representative Fincher.
Could you give me an example of 3Qing, exactly, an example of how it would work?
Yes, sir.
It obviously doesn't work well, but
No, it does not. The research on it is pretty overwhelming that it is not effective. Essentially, if you're looking at a picture book, easy example is there's a sentence with a word missing, and you use the picture that's in the book to get them to guess what the word would be. So they're just guess. It's really truly a system of guessing and trying to use memorization rather than really learning how to phonetically sound out words. But that would be a simple example.
the word you're trying to get them to come up with is the word missing.
Correct. So it
And
might be
so
a
something
picture-
is missing in a picture?
No. Let me clarify. So let's say there's a picture of a balloon, And it might say, what's in this, or what blank, I can't think of this sentence now, but there's a picture that you would use to figure out the word. The picture isn't missing. I can't think of a sentence, sorry.
Let me give an example. Several
ahead.
years ago, when we were first working on the Literacy Act, we did a little simulation, and I believe you were in here. And one of the things that would be is like the word would be horse, but they would see a student but could potentially see a pony and say pony, and they would accept that, but the word was horse. And so it's using the pictures to guess the word instead of looking at the letters and sounding it out.
Okay, so it's a picture, it's
It's using a
picture-based and
picture or
not
whatever
actually-
it is.
Gotcha, okay.
Or it's also a memorization, like they come home with a list of words to just memorize.
Madam Chair, if I might just add on to that then, so the decoding of actually looking at the letters and all, HORSE, then
Yeah.
that doesn't, for them, in their
doesn't
mind, they're
happen.
thinking pony and all, so they haven't decoded the letters to be able to understand. So that's why the science of reading is so important.
Other questions? Do I hear a motion to adopt the sub? So moved by Chairman, Vice Chair Baker. Do I hear a second by Representative Drummond? Any other discussion about the substitute for House Bill 173? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Do I hear a motion to give a favorable report to Representative Gidley as substituted for House Bill 173? Do I hear a second? Representative Woods? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the bill is given a favorable report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Halsey. We are going to have a public hearing on House Bill 188, and we will not be voting on this bill right now. And so I spoke with the vice chair, and since we're just having a public hearing, we have discussed House Bill 188, which is lovingly known as the due process bill. I think I've explained in the past, this is only applying to suspensions or expulsions over 10 days, over 2 weeks, basically, and that we have already agreed with one of the changes that's come out from a couple of our associations to remove the language. My goal with this bill was that if you are not attending school and you're late or you're tardy or truancy, that we don't kick you out of school to punish you for that. But I did not realize that it also said the code of conduct or state laws. So we will be amending it when we get to that. But at this time, I'm just gonna, we've discussed it so often, I'm gonna open it up for the public hearing. And first, I'm gonna call Jerome Dees. We'll have 3 minutes. Thank you. No.
Good afternoon, again, committee members. Jerome Dees with Southern Poverty Law Center. I've already spoken with you all multiple times on this bill, so I will do my best to be as concise but comprehensive as possible to try and kind of clear up any questions or concerns that may still be present. We'll start off with the definition section, so we can just kind of walk through the bill just really quickly. Based on my copy at line 66, we have the definition of what constitutes expulsion. That's removal from classroom setting for over 90 days. Moving down to line 39, long-term suspension. Again, as the chairwoman said, that's 10 days on up to 90 days. Definition of classroom disruption, and that's going to be any behavior that impedes the ability for reasonable teaching or learning. What this bill does, if you jump to line 61, it does prohibit children, as presently stated, under the age of 12 from being removed from school unless the student endangers the safety of other students, school personnel, or school property over $1,000. We've already gotten with the chairwoman who has submitted language to LSA, so there's going to be an amendment on line 61 changing that age down to 11. You all may remember in previous iterations of this bill, the original language was just trying to get at kids from K through 5th grade, elementary aged. And so 12 was a little too high on that, so we're bringing that down to age 11. Jumping on to line 70, as the chairwoman referenced, the bill does prohibit removal for truancy and tardiness. There will be amendment language offered to clarify that at lines 72 through 73, everything beyond tardiness is going to be stricken. So any reference to code of conduct, state, federal law, that will be stricken from the bill in the amendment. Jumping on to line 74 through 107, and that's kind of the meat, which requires notice to be given to parents or guardians before the hearing, as well as, again, as we've just heard several other bills talking about the need for parents to be engaged. This allows parents a fair chance at a hearing. Line 108, we've got some more time parameters. Requires the hearing occur within 10 days of an initial suspension from school. And again, this bill, over the past several years, we've engaged with a number of different education organizations, class, AASB, superintendents. We understand that there's still not complete agreement on that, but we are open. I will close very quickly with this, what the bill does not do. Lines 83 and 89 explicitly says the bill does not prohibit the use of suspensions and expulsions altogether. That is still possible. Lines 85 through 86, it does not require hearings for suspensions under 10 days. And then very importantly, lines 86, 124, and then 141 to 154 all reference that it does not eliminate or reallocate the prosecutory power of schools or remove the final decision-making authority of all of the local BOEs. So once again, thank you all for your time, and I'm available for any questions between now and next week.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much. Next, I'm going to call opponent John Jacobs, who is superintendent from Randolph County.
Thank you, Representative Collins and committee. I represent my county and Superintendent's Association, and we are in favor of due process. And we all have due process written into our code of conduct and in our policy manuals. So, like in my county, when we develop our code of conduct, we have input from parents, teachers, administrators. We have students on our policy committees, so that the steps are outlined for everybody, and everybody has input into that. So we feel like that our systems have due process built into what we already have on our books right now. We all contact parents with any type of infraction that a student may have. We have things in line if it goes as far as the tribunal, to where somebody has to be removed for over 10 days. We have those safeguards in place for those students and for the parents, and parents always have, they have their seat at the table too, as we're developing these policies and procedures as we go along. So we feel like we have that already in place, and that some things may change what we're already doing. I'm open to any questions anybody might have.
If they may at the end, we'll see.
Okay.
When we're done. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Next, we're going to call Chris Sutton, who is a proponent.
Distinguished representatives, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. Today I stand before you. I'm a parent. I'm an advocate for students, and I'm a father. I have students that are in the in the Shelby system, particularly Thompson High School. House Bill 188 is a small step in restoring much-needed due process rights. But as I reviewed the current version of the bill, there's a glaring deficiency that came to my attention. The deficiency is judiciary review. So without judiciary review, due process becomes a catchphrase. This bill in its current form reinforces a current system which students remain at risk. Without independent judicial reviews, every student still faces the potential for an accuser that also serves as the prosecutor, the judge, the jury, and the executioner. There is only one man who comes to mind for me as the perfect judge who could serve that role. Seeing as how he died 2,000 years ago, I haven't seen him come back yet, so we're not going to have him fill that role. I still await his return. With the lack of this perfect judge, the best that we can hope to provide for our students in this state is a righteous judge who is independent from any school system who would be the accuser. You'll likely hear arguments today against this legislation that would suggest the bill provides protections to those students who would harm other students in our schools. I would argue that whether a child is in our schools and is there to do harm, they deserve due process regardless of guilt or innocence. To deny due process is to deny a God-given right by virtue of birth. Without substantive change, we may as well provide funding to convert every swing set at every school into a gallows. As I indicated before, I am a father. My family is also a victim of this system. That testimony is far too intense and far too great a testimony to share here today. We don't have the time. But I would love to have the opportunity to speak to any of you in regards to some of the atrocities that can be committed under this system. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sutton. And lastly, we'll call up Ashley McLean, representing Superintendent's Association.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't expecting 3 minutes today. I can talk at a normal speed, I think. Your school superintendent supports student due process. We do currently have it in our public schools. In fact, students have similar due process rights as your teachers have. If you look in current Alabama Code 12-15-115, which is cited on line 153 of this bill, it specifically says, a juvenile court also shall have original jurisdiction in proceedings concerning any child in either of the following instances, the second of which is where it is alleged that the rights of a child are improperly denied or infringed upon in proceedings resulting in suspension, expulsion, or exclusion from a public school. So, in other words, a student who's been suspended or expelled does have the right to appeal to the local district judge, an unbiased authority outside of the school system. So it doesn't just end with your local board. They will review the hearing, the evidence, and make a determination on whether or not the decision the local board made was a just and fair decision. And if it's not, then they have the right to send it back to the local school board to have them make a different judgment as far as that goes. Due process generally has 3 parts. It is notice, an opportunity to be heard, and an impartial tribunal. In the school system, we do give notice to our parents. You heard Mr. Jacobs reference that. We hold hearings. And then if the parents have the right to appeal to the district judge if they feel like that they have been treated unfairly. So students do have due process currently. But this bill isn't just about due process. This bill is also creating almost a partial code of conduct for the state. And that's really a local decision and should be a local decision. Line 61 through 69 gives specific instances on when a local school system may or may not suspend or expel a student under the age of 12. I understand it's going to go to 11. But last year, your superintendents had to suspend or expel children 5th grade or below for profanity and vulgarity, tobacco use or possession, theft, drug possession, breaking and entering, defiance of authority, willful and persistent disobedience, and inappropriate use of technology and vaping. So we don't suspend or expel children lightly. We want them to be in school. It's our whole purpose for existing. But we do have to, there are instances where we do have to take that step. And they do have due process. But when we get into code of conduct, as Mr. Jacobs said, this is something that they do as a community on the local level. They involve parents, they involve students, they involve teachers, they involve members of their community. That part should be left out of this bill and should be left for the local school systems to do, not for the state to legislate. The due process part of it, going down the checklist of what you would ask them to do, I talked to 40 superintendents this morning. Every one of those they have as part of their process, with the exception of the video recording, and that becomes some privacy laws where they have to blur out, but it's certainly something that we could work toward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The public hearing is closed. We've discussed this in past. I think the goal that we've had, I've had, let me say that, is to have some type of an appeal process that would be before you took it to a judicial area. That's been kind of what the goal was. And I think we've tried to work with everybody, including even now, willing to take an amendment in when we work on this later on. But are there any questions that I can answer or that anyone at the public hearing can answer? Representative Morris.
Either one of you. If we already have this in the local schools, then why is it such a big problem just to add it to make sure it's uniform across the state and not just across like each area having different due process for students? Why we wouldn't want it to be uniform across the whole state of Alabama as one system?
The due process part of it, we would be open to having a conversation about. The part that deals more with the code of conduct, what they can and can't be suspended for under the age of, that part of it is local. We feel like that's a local control, that's local decision making. But the due process, what you're talking about, the checks of, informing the parent and all that part of the bill, we are open to having a conversation about that. We don't have issues there, with the exception of the audio video recording, which would need some protections in there for other students who might be in the video recording.
So you want the local boards to be, not the local boards, but the local school system to be able to say that we are going to terminate, or not terminate, suspend at 10 or 11, but it's going to be based on each district for what they want,
Right.
and not uniform across the state.
Yeah, because that's not due process, that's behavior and infractions and discipline, versus due process is what are you using as a procedure when a child has been accused. So they're two separate things, but they're in the same bill.
Yeah, but the code of conduct part, like if you got kids that you're saying they're getting suspended for tobacco product, wouldn't that be the same across the board if they are getting suspended for tobacco use, or each area should have their own mechanism of what you're going to do when it come down to?
Communities are vastly different across the state, so it may be a more regular occurrence in one area of the state than the other, and yeah, I think former educators would probably answer that better than you, and Mr. Jacobs probably could as well, better than I could.
Like, for example, with vaping. Vaping is really by the law, it's on the same level as alcohol. So we treat it in our system, it's the same punishment for a child vaping as they do if they were to bring alcohol to school and drink alcohol. So that's our decision. There may be others that say that's maybe just a suspension, but ours is a little bit stronger because of the level that our community feels about towards vaping. I know we have vape detectors in in our bathrooms in our schools because we saw how bad a problem vaping was, and we wanted to stop it because parents seem to feel like vaping was not as bad as smoking. So we had elementary kids bringing vapes to school, vaping in the bathroom. So So we felt like that needed to be a strong punishment for him. And like I said, and that's parents and students and everybody, all the stakeholders in those decisions. So my community may be different from your community of what you feel.
And let me say, that's why we were willing to take out the code of conduct, because it could look different. And so changing the age and removing the code of conduct and state of law was already agreed upon.
Okay.
Other questions for Representative Pascal?
Okay, going back to the code of conduct, okay, are you satisfied with that removal?
Well, we certainly appreciate that removal because that would have prevented us from being able to suspend or expel children for any reason, which was definitely not the intent of the
No.
chair. But the still under 12 or even under 11, there are still instances where we may need to suspend or expel a child that has nothing to do with whether or not they're a danger to others or themselves, or whether or not they did $1,000 worth of damage or substantial classroom disruption, which the definition of that, when you're using the words reasonable, that's a subjective term in the definition of classroom disruption. So there's a little bit of issue with that definition as well. But there are instances where we do have to suspend a child under the age of 11. It's not because we want to, but because sometimes it's the way to get the parents involved, or there's other issues. We have to do that, and this would prevent us from being able to do that the way that it's currently written.
The way it's currently written, and I'm willing to continue to work with them to correct. Yes.
All right, okay, and just last question. Okay, due process, before you get to the appeal process, for your court system. If someone is subject to being suspended, what is the current due process at the schools now?
Well, like, and let's just say, for example, that a student, when we've had the process of going through, and we set up with our parent committee and the code of conduct, we set up our levels. And like in my system, we have 4 levels, and it starts with real simple things in the classroom, down to arson and assault and such as that. And there's also a mechanism for where they would stack on each other, where if you have several level 2 offenses, it can go to level 3. And we talk to parents at every step of it. You know, we're gonna talk to parents before we do in-school suspension, especially before we do out-of-school suspension. We're gonna get parents in whenever possible and try to come up with a plan. So we work with parents all down through this process, so that they're aware of what's going on, and ask for their input and what can we do to help your child in this situation.
So when you get to that level and they're suspended and you have the hearing, so then there's the parents notified.
Right. When you get as far as us looking at doing a 10-day plus suspension, then we have 10 days that we have to get the information to them. We have to provide a packet to them before the board hearing. They are allowed to have representation, and we can have representation there from our council. We do, and it basically is set up just like it would be in a court of law, with things being presented to the board of what guilt is. We do have a mechanism built in to where if my child got caught vaping and they're gonna be on an extended suspension or the alternative school, I can sign a paper and say, I know he's guilty. You know, he did it, and go through that. So that process is also built into it.
Okay, thanks. I think the parent that was here, okay. Is this the process you went through?
Oh, absolutely not. As educators, you'll appreciate that all educators are not created equal, right? So we have problems within the system where there is no judge. It's whatever the president of the local board, the city board, who is voted in by the city council, they're not accountable to the public by any stretch of the imagination. So we have an appointed individual. I'm not against appointments. People should have qualifications to educate our children. But accountability to the people for an appointed person has to come from somewhere, and it can't come by proxy from someone else.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, okay, for the process, you heard him explain his school system and your experience. Okay,
In our experience, what happens critical unanswered goes there. My daughter's hearing, she did have a hearing before the board. It was on Easter Monday. 24 hours in advance, I got 2 emails from the designee assigned over the hearing, 2 emails that were scheduled on Gmail, scheduler, to arrive exactly 24 hours in advance. There were 176 scanned pages of documents, 10 pages of which were provided by the school as evidence that were leafleted in between all the pages that I had presented. I was given 24 hours advance notice on Easter Sunday.
Okay. And the reason I was just asking this question, I think it's very important for the rest of the members to understand the position we in is, it sounds like you have a good system in place. But the goal is we want to make sure that every parent, every school system have the opportunity to do their, well,
If we could make every system reflective of your system and the things that I've heard here today, I think that's a beautiful step. But that's not what we have.
okay. Well, Madam Chairman.
That basic is exactly what I've been looking for. Yes, sir.
I just want to say thank you for the opportunity to give me the opportunity to ask that question. I look forward to working with you guys, with everyone else. And we need to get to a uniformity, and then let's meet, see what we can agree on, come back next week, and then move this thing forward. So thank you,
Thank you.
Madam Chairman.
Any other questions, Representative Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I know I have had a few years' experience in education, and in our system, if it's a long-term expulsion, we're not talking about 10 days, but maybe we're talking about for the remainder of a year or a year. Do you have, as a parent, does the parent have the right to have counsel with them?
Yes, they do.
Okay. The school systems that I worked in, the parent could bring counsel with them to help advise the student. I think what we're looking at here is there's different degrees, as you've mentioned. How would this affect in-school suspension and alternative school? Because as a principal, I knew the kid didn't really want to be there to start with, and so I didn't want to send him home to hunt or fish or whatever he enjoyed doing. I wanted to keep him there as close as I could to me. And so I used some alternative class work in classrooms and with a in-school suspension. And this was much beyond threat to life or, those high-dollar problems that are mentioned in there. But how does this, and maybe that's a question for Mr. Dees, how does this affect in-school suspension and an alternative school environment?
I can real quick before Jerome jumps in with an answer, is that one of the definition of expulsion and suspension says removal from their regular school environment. And in-school suspension or
Is removed.
School is not their regular school environment. Therefore, it would limit us for long-term suspensions to put them in an ISS or alternative school situation because it's not their
Right.
regular school environment.
That's what my point would be also.
One of the discussions that we had had towards the end of last year, I think we are open to allowing for the ISS in-school suspension. I think there might be still some rubs with the alternative school placement since that would be kind of an off-site type setup, but for in-school suspension, I think that there's definitely room for collaboration.
All right, thank you.
We do for a very long time, say somebody got caught with alcohol in September, and they would be, because our policy says a calendar year, but we kind of vary that around. Since the advent of so much online, we have a lot of online classes in our system, so that student may not come to school. He may stay at home with his parents and grandparents, but he gets his education, because we don't want kids to get behind, things.
Any other questions? Representative Paramore.
It's more of a comment, Madam Chair, but listening to all of this discussion and making a statewide, guidelines, What I don't want to see as a former city council president who appointed school board members, I don't want communities to lose control of their guidance over the schools. I want to make sure local communities still have a very large say in how their schools are run. So that's my comment in this whole discussion. I don't want us to lose sight of that. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you very much. Any other questions? We've got contact information for everybody that's spoken today. If you've got questions, I think ultimately I'd like to end before we adjourn for the day by simply saying I wish all of our systems worked in the same way, that we've heard a strong system and fair system is working. That's the minimum standards we're talking about, putting in place, not taking away local control, not doing something, and continuing to work, but so that all systems have that baseline of positive influence over that. And so if you'll keep that in mind this week, if you'll get in touch with me if you've got any questions, or if you need in touch with anybody that spoke, we'll be glad to do that. And at this point, we are adjourned.